Hello, and welcome to the How to Exit podcast, where we introduce you to a world of small to medium business acquisitions and mergers. We interview business owners, industry leaders, authors, mentors, and other influencers with the sole intent to share with you what it looks like to buy or sell a business. Let's get rolling. And now a moment for our sponsors. I want to highly recommend you get Acquisition Aficionado magazine. Every month, Acquisition Aficionado magazine brings you tactics for business buying and selling you won't find anywhere else. Learn firsthand from industry leaders who share their success stories, featuring in-depth interviews and stories from leading figures in the business acquisition industry. This multi-platform mobile magazine speaks to acquisition entrepreneurs wherever they are in the journey. And I want you to visit acquisitionaficionado.com today. Hello and welcome to the How to Exit podcast. Today I'm here with Charlie Panayi. He is an international travel guy. He speaks on multiple stages, both real estate, private equity. We're going to have a great conversation today. This young man became a millionaire at an early stage in life and is now doing all the stuff you guys are trying to get done. So just here to pick his brain, learn from him, and let you guys share the ride. Thank you for being here today, Charlie.
No, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Let's start off with kind of, who you are, where you're located, because I know you're sitting on the other side of the big old pond, and you travel a little bit, so you can tell us where you're located at the moment.
I come from a Greek Cypriot family actually, but they all vacated Cyprus when the war was going on to North London or Melbourne. All the Greeks went to. So I ended up in North London. So yeah, I grew up in North London. So that's where I'm from. Right now, I do spend my time mixed in quite various locations because I love to travel. So what I did at a young age was always for freedom, not for money. I wanted to do what I wanted. So, but I sort of spent this year, for example, I've been 50% in Dubai, 50% in England, and a couple of months in. I say 50, I'm over 100% now, but a couple of months in Europe. So I move about a bit. My home is still technically it's a tiny little island called the Isle of Wight in the south of England. It's the closest to abroad I can feel when in England.
It's like I live in a little vacation destination tucked up in the Redwood Forest in Northern California. I'm still in California. I can go to the Golden Gate Bridge and be in San Francisco and probably ride out an hour. But I just don't prefer to be around the big city environment. Let's talk about your private equity company. Let's talk about kind of your history in business. Both you and I kind of probably got our primary income or wealth from starting in the real estate space. Tell us what kind of the type of real estate investing you did and still do, and then we'll get into the private equity company.
To be fair, for real estate, it was something I decided at a very young age I was going to do it. Not really sure why I decided real estate. I can't remember the rationale behind that. But at the age of 7, I decided I'm going to buy properties so I can retire young. That was my thought process, and that's what I did. But it started off very basic, just buying to rent because that's what I knew. And then obviously you learn as time goes on. In hindsight, would have I if I could talk to myself now and said, "Do you know what, Charlie, you could have gone and found someone like you and paid them a bit of money to tell you how to do what to do and what not to do, I would do it." Back then I was pretty ignorant. I was earning good money. I was like, I'm gonna buy properties. So yeah, it was very, very straightforward, very basic, nothing too fancy out of the box. But obviously since then, I did all sorts. I mean, in process of converting into house of multiple occupancies, I've done commercial conversions, new builds, extensions, all sorts, anything you can think of in the property world, I've done or been part of. And I did that more because I enjoyed it. Now, when I work with people now, it's more about strategy driven. What's the end goal? And then we're focused on that type of real estate investment. But for me, it did get a little bit like I wanted to learn, so I was trying lots of different things to see with my own money, which in hindsight I should have learned first. But yeah, I made money, so I've never touched wood. I don't want to jinx myself. Lost money in real estate, but I haven't always made as much as I could have.
Right.
So yeah, I love it. I actually still, I talk about it as a sexy asset. You can see it, feel it, touch it. You know, you, so for me, it's always going to be appealing because it's my bread and butter. It's what's gave me what I have and what I will have. So I still enjoy real estate, just with the rigmarole of how financiers and banks and you have to give them your, what socks are you wearing, what boxers am I wearing, what shoe size have I got? To be honest, it's got a little bit too much for that. The effort. Sometimes I've got a transaction going on at the moment with a company I've only got 10% shares in, and they want me to give them my whole portfolio, my ins, my outs, the values, the rental values, my personal bank statements for 3 months, my personal pay slips for 3 months. But the list goes on. I was like, God, get out of here.
Here, it's normally if you own more than a certain controlling share, it's 19.5%. So long as you stay under
Hmm.
20%, they usually don't require financials
Well,
for loans
that's
and
what it
stuff.
used to be like here, but it's very recently changed. This is
Maybe
what I mean with the real estate
it may have changed here too
world.
then, I don't know. The thing about real estate is, if you hold on to it long enough, usually it appreciates, which is cool. I've had a few times where I've sold a house and had to take a check to closing because I messed up on the numbers when I did my rehab, or like I thought a foundation damage. One of the houses that comes to mind, I had to take, $18,000, $20,000. I think it was close to 18.5 or something, to closing to sell the house. Like I had to pay to sell it. And it was mainly because I had underestimated the foundation damage of this thing. It had a basement which had a foundation leak, so water would come in when it rained into the basement, and we
Mm,
had to dig. What I was told pre-buying the house would be a $7,000 to $10,000 fix to dig around the house and seal the house right, was $27,000,
mm.
right, to do it right. And, so I've had a fair share of those, and every real estate investor I know that's done more than a few deals has had at least one case where, like, they had to go to closing not to pick up a check, they had to go to closing to write one.
I mean, unfortunate at the moment, but I was always a bit skeptical. So growing up, I say I knew what I wanted to do from the age of 7. So what I did was always surround myself by people that have done things. So from the age of 7, I was learning
Mhm,
about business more than property, probably, but business. And I realised early doors that when I was making my first ever real estate purchase, when I turned the day I turned 18, I completed. I was always I'm a very optimistic person in life, always half full, never half empty. When it comes to real estate investment, I'm a pessimist. I'm like, okay, what if we can't get tenants in for what the right market value is? What if it costs us more? And luckily for me, because I agree, any person I know who's done a reasonable amount in the real estate world has had their fingers burnt somewhere. I think because I met people that had early doors, I was always really skeptical and sometimes probably harsh on people because some of my negotiating was very tough. But end of the day, I'm not doing it personally. It's business.
mhm.
So yes, you might not like what I'm telling you, but take it or leave it. I don't care. If you leave it, that's fine. I'll go on to the next. So yeah, even but I having said that, the conversion I've got at the moment is the closest I've come. I will still make profit, but the cost of refurb is a good 20 grand more than planned. Yes, do we have 20 grand to put in it? Yeah, but that's not the point. It's the principle. I'm like, the numbers are based off 20, this 20k, I'm losing 20k profit. 20k profit is about 8 to 9% of the return on investment, which I don't want to lose 8 to 9%. Anyway, I've got to suck it up. I've sucked it up today.
So we have a similar background in the fact I didn't start when I was 7, but sometime around my teens, the Carlton Sheets was all over the infomercials on TV, right? And this was a guy who was teaching no money down real estate back before anybody else that I know of, and him and Robert Allen, right? So I didn't even have a credit card because I was 15, 16 probably at this time. Convinced my dad, said, I was painting houses with my dad. Said, look, I'll give you the cash for this, but will you order this for me? I want to do some of these because we were painting a lot of and remodeling a lot of houses for real estate investors, and I seen what they were doing. I was like, I'd like to get into this. So I buy the program, I read through everything, and then I realized that, somebody gave me the realization that in Oklahoma and else in most states, maybe it's a federal thing. You can't legally sign a contract until you're 18. I was like, I
Yeah,
sign
that was
contracts
mine.
every day. What are you talking about? No, I was signing as my LLC. So my
Mm.
LLC, for the painting company, I was a representative there. So the LLC was the one going into contract with people, not me. So I was like, fine, I'll buy these houses under an LLC. Like, yeah, the closing company won't let that fly. So I convinced my father, which as a, had a 10th grade education, he dropped out of school at 10th grade. Like, listen, we're going to go buy some properties. And back then, there's a thing called assumable loans. They're not, they got rid of since then, but non qualifying assumptions were a thing. We partnered up. He had a buddy of his that was the Tulsa County sheriff at the time. And the sheriff would tell us when somebody was going to jail for 5 to 6 years, and we would meet with them and say if they owned a house, say, look, we'll put $5,000 into a savings account, under your name or under somebody's name that you trust. You deed your house to us, and we'll pay the payments, and we'll take over your house. And we got 2, 3, 4 or 5. His dad had 6 properties at the peak. One of them was one we used to live in, so there's 5. We picked up 5 properties that way, and then, unfortunately, because I wasn't 18, by the time we got all of them, when they got a divorce, they fought over them, and they ended up having to sell them all to pay the attorneys.
Mm.
Because my mom technically, they were mom's and dad's houses, but I was, a partner. I did it mainly because it made our lives more comfortable, right? I was
Yeah,
before I
yeah.
was 18, they made more money, I got more things to do and more time, they were less stressed. So, but yeah, we accumulated about 5 or 6 properties by the time I was 18 in 2.5 years, of getting the
Mm.
program, but mostly because we were doing these non-qualifying assumptions.
There's lots of creative ways still today. Obviously, there's things that have been taken away and gone and whatever, but there's always a creative way, and this is in business or real estate.
Yeah,
But there's always creative ways to do things. It's just knowing people, being around like-minded individuals, speaking to people, and you learn stuff all the time. I reached out to a gent who is in this similar space to me, and he was doing something I just couldn't figure it out. Now, I've got a bigger background in real estate than him, so people would think I know the answer to that. But I was thinking, how the hell bloody hell is he doing it? So instead of me trying to figure out, I just phoned him, and obviously we're quite an open world if we want to communicate and be friendly with each other. And I just said, how much do you want for you to tell me? He said 12,000. I was all right. So I sent him 12 grand. Sat down for a couple of days. He showed me. That's made me more than 290 grand. That 12 grand.
yeah.
Now, and that's the thing. I think for me, there is so many creative ways. And look, I might have a big background in certain parts of what I do, but it doesn't mean I know everything. So I just keep an eye on my community, the people around me, the people they're doing, and okay, how are you doing that? Because I want to do that, and I help other people as well, obviously.
Yeah, I'm not a big believer in that somebody's ever gonna steal your ideas. Ideas are really hard work. Anybody that's a true successful entrepreneur knows how much hard work's in an idea. So I have people call me, "Hey, will you sign an NDA? I'm gonna share my idea with you, and I wanna know if you're gonna invest in it." I was like, "I ain't signing anything. If you want my
No.
information, I'll give it to you, but I promise you however easy you think your idea is, I'm 52. I don't do ideas anymore. I pretty much wanna buy a company that's
I don't
already
want to do
running.
startups.
I don't wanna start anything, right? I say that I just helped my wife and my son start their own business because we couldn't find one that would my son's 13, he wanted to own his own business. So, I helped him start a concessions business. They're doing good. People
Yeah.
love their product. That said, if it was it's that's their hours and that's their labor. In my mind, I was like, if we can't go find something to buy, that will produces the income you're wanting, that's already got proven market fit, man, that's a lot of work. But to get back
Mm.
to circle the point I was making is people all the time worry that someone's gonna steal your idea, but they don't understand truly how much hard work, time, and energy it takes to take an idea to market, prove market fit, and make a profit.
Realistically, people that will steal your ideas are people that haven't been there themselves. So you're talking to the wrong people.
Mhm,
Yeah, the ones who might steal your ideas are the ones who aren't successful. If you speak to someone who's started a small business, they
mhm.
don't have to be super successful. They do understand how hard that is. So they won't be afraid of just giving you some nice tips. And they might not know the answers, but what they will do is tell you what not to do. They might not have the solution, but there's definitely things they've done that they shouldn't have done, and they'll say, avoid that, go here. Or best norm more often than not, they might know someone
Yeah,
who can help you. So you invest in $20 into a coffee meeting, chat, bit of cake. That can really open up your world. And I think that's again something I learned from a young age. And Even today, I do networking things locally, and I do not mean this in a big-headed way, what I'm about to say, but some of the people there ask me quite directly, "Why do you still come in?" I said, "Well, why wouldn't I? Well, you don't need to, but one day I might need to." So for me, I want the network, I want connections, I want community, I want to know that if I need a fencer, I know I'm going to call. If I need somebody to give me a little bit of advice on planning, I know the list goes on. And you might, I think it's super undervalued now.
You know, you'd be amazed at who would sit down with you too. This is a people business. I talk to so many people in private equity and business, even in real estate, and it comes down to rapport and building rapport with other individuals. I've won real estate deals where I wasn't the highest offer, where I was $5,000 or $6,000
Well,
less than the highest offer,
mm,
but the family just liked me more. Right? They'd made more money with the other guy, but they liked me and they liked what I was going to do, with their house. The same thing happens in business all the time.
people by people. So everyone decides on the same three things. Everyone's the same the way we make our decision on people. That's product, person, and company effectively. Now, if you're buying a person, it's just the person side. But in business, I've probably found this more than real estate. I get that in real estate as well. Look, I get lots of bargains because someone knows me and they know I'll do the deal. They trust me, so they're willing. This building I'm sat in here now, similar to what you used to do with the banks, they just approached me and said, "Look, we've only got 120 grand in this. If you take 120 grand, you can have it, but complete in 40 days." Okay, I'll take it. This is worth more than 250. So for me, it was a simple thing. So it does work in property, but I think from a business acquisition purpose, the relationships is probably bigger than I've seen it anywhere because me and my business partner at the moment are in talks with a software company. Now, his easy option, because it's a distressed sale, health wise, is to sell it to the big competitor in the field because they want it. They want to buy it, they pay a good price for it because they know what the value is. He doesn't want to do that because he started this company to take them out. But he really likes me and my business partner, and he knows what we can bring to the table. He knows my background on the one side of it, and he's my friend, but my business partner's software background. So he knows us together. We can scale it. So it's very much a relationship thing there. He could easily go and sell it to the competitor for this, but because he likes us, he knows us. He's got to get to know us. He knows our background. He wants that. Now, if we didn't have that conversation, if it was just a email, because hey, this is your number there, that's your number there, this is your number there. What's the answer to X, Y, Z? There's no relationship. The way I work with business acquisitions is look at the numbers first, because you don't want to be wasting your time. I might think you're the best thing ever since sliced bread. Doesn't mean you've got a good business. So what I do is I want to see the numbers first. Now, if they make sense, then we talk. Before other things, let's talk. Because if I meet with a person who owns the company that I just don't trust, doesn't matter how good the numbers are, they could be phenomenal. If I don't trust you or I don't like you, we're not going to go into business together. It's quite straightforward.
When I was trying to figure out what I was doing after real estate, during that process for even a couple years, I would go to business networking meetings and entrepreneurial hangouts and stuff, and you'd be surprised who would sit down with you, right? I can't say his
Mm,
name because I don't have permission, but there was a gentleman in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He's since moved to Dallas area. I'll give you that. He worked in the mergers and acquisitions field. He's put the seed in my head. He bought privately held company, or excuse me, publicly troubled public companies, would merge one or two of them together and then took them private. He would basically buy publicly traded companies, take them private, fix them, and then take them public. And
yep.
he would meet up with me, and he would throw these weird things like, he said, "I'll mentor you, but you have to do it on my time." I'm like, okay. And he thought he was like being sly or whatever. He's like, okay, meet me up for coffee at 6 a.m. when they open. I was like, I don't think you realize I'm prior
Yeah.
military. I wake up when the sun does, right? So 4:45 in the morning on a good day, I could be wide awake. Anyway, so it didn't bother me a bit. I would show up. Sometimes he would have me show up at 5 a.m. at one of the coffee shops that opened super early. It had a bakery in it, so they were there baking bread. They would serve coffee and stuff. I'd show up whenever he said to. The one time he couldn't meet me until 10 o'clock at night. It's like, okay, let's go. But I met with him time and time just to learn what he was doing and how it worked. And the funny thing that came from that conversation was, he goes, "Look, if I don't, it's a people business, even in publicly traded companies. If I don't win over the directors and I don't win over the
Hmm.
key investors, the key shareholders, I'll never win over the market and be able to take these companies. So and his whole team knows that. So it wasn't just him.
Yeah.
He had a team. They raise capital and they do this. That they started with the people first. They would go meet the people.
Yeah.
This is before Zoom was popular. They would go meet the people and figure out what their problems were, figure out a solution for them, sit down with them, build rapport with them, and like, okay, they had a history of this, like they knew who they were talking to, so that reputation was
Mm.
beneficial. But he goes, if I can't connect with people and do what we're doing here and get to know somebody, none of these deals would ever get done.
People forget it, and like you said about you don't know who would talk to you. Like the worst thing that can happen is they say no.
Yeah.
Which that's the worst thing that could happen.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't really know what you lost. If there's someone who's doing something I don't know, then I'm gonna ask to meet them. And also it's important not to become too arrogant in that as well, because I'm having a chat with a gentleman in Bali next week, and he's doing something in a space I want to move into. Now, the guy isn't, in his words, in my level of what we've done. However, what he is doing is something I don't know. So what I said to him is like, look, I'll tell you what, you give me time to learn about what this is, and I'll give you time to learn about what you want to learn. We both win.
Yeah.
And that's now if he didn't reach out to me, he probably would have been sitting there thinking Charlie's never going to work with me because why would he help me? He's got no reason to help me. But actually, what we realise is there's some synergy in what he does and what I do, and I want to learn, irrelevant of what I've done that he hasn't. I want to learn, and he's got that something that I want to learn. So yeah, the worst case scenario is he reached out to me and I said no or ignored him.
Yeah, I'm getting old enough now where I look at things and realize that people usually follow the trajectory that they're currently on and have been on for years. And the way that that changes is too. A guy like you has to invest time in them, but they really have to be wanting it. There's got to be something, and usually it's some event happened in their life. Something's truly triggered a deep desire to get out of the position they're in. If it's just a curiosity, I rarely see those
Give
succeed.
it a go.
Yeah, it's usually.
I've got a, I've got. Sorry, I was sorry to interrupt, but I've got just while it's in my brain, I've got a lady. I'm not going to name her because I don't want to get myself in trouble. But there's a lady I know quite well, and she's always saying, "Yeah, but this and all but that," and I wish I could do this, and I wish I could do that, and yeah, but I've got two kids. But I am the type of person that will say, "Pull your big girl pants up and get on with it." Now, I said to her, the reality is, I don't want to make you feel bad here, but I know single mums who have built successful businesses and done college or degrees outside of that. You've got a partner, you've got a nice home, you've got a nice this, you've got that. So, yeah, but I don't have time. We've all got 358 hours in a week. So actually, you've got a hell of a lot of time, but you're not applying yourself. You're not using your time wisely. And the problem with this person is, and I say this openly to them. I'm not naming them for a reason, but I say this openly to them. Is you don't really want it enough. You think you want it. You're comparing yourself to other people, and you're saying I should do this because I could do this. You don't really want it, and that's the reality.
When I hear people say, "I don't have enough time," I get this flashback from when I was a kid. Now, I'm gonna say something that people will go, "Your father abused you." No, he didn't. But my dad would give me that little smack in the back of the head, you know? Not on a
Yeah,
your head's
yeah,
hard. It didn't hurt. It was kinda more insulting. And, anytime I told my dad was like, "You need to do this." Like, "Dad, I'm busy. I don't have time." He'd whack me back in the head and say, "Time's not had, it's made. And if I tell you to do something, make
yeah,
the time to get it done." Right? And that's to this
yeah.
day, if somebody says I don't have time, I was like, "Look, time's not had. We all have the same amount of time. Time's made. If it's a priority to
Yes.
you, you will make time. So change your priorities."
Well, I come back to the couple only because it's today that I had lunch with these people. That's what they said about time. I was like, but I can make time. If you hold value to my life in terms of I think you're a good person, your family, I love you, whatever it might be, business, I will make time. There's no such thing as not having enough time. You just structure it. We feel like that. I'm sure you and I both have moments where we think, blimey, how am I fitting all this in? But we get it done.
I have a requirement in my own mind where I go to the beach here, the ocean, and watch the water for a couple hours a week, every week, because it centers me. It's like meditation to me. It brings me joy. And I've just been like, my wife's like, "Do you realize you haven't, since we moved here 2.5 years ago, this is the first 2 weeks that I haven't been over there." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm busy. I've got commitments to other people." And she says like, "Yeah, but that's what centers you. That's what, I can tell that you're stressed out right now." It's like, "Yeah, I'll get to it. I'll
Mhm.
make it happen." Now it's becoming a little bit more priority because it's affecting other stuff. I'm too busy, so I'll take the time. I'll make a block off of time. I'll go sit there and I usually read something business wise and listen to the ocean and stuff. But we do need to take time for ourselves occasionally.
Mm.
But like I told her, so
So
it took her saying
I
something for me to realize that I didn't make time for something I know I need. If you can give somebody something like your mountain climbing, the reason I thought about the fishing thing is I could relate to it, is you gave them a story to tell, right?
mm.
You built deep enough rapport because you got the chance to share a life event with them, but you created a life event that they'll tell their kids about it, like when they went and hiked this mountain and the view they had.
So this mountain isn't, I call it a mountain. It's classed as a mountain in the UK.
Mhm.
To me, it's a hill. But you're right. This person hasn't done that before, so they're going to go away and they're going to remember that. And
Yeah.
whether they're ready to move their business on yet, or in a year's, or in 2 years, they will remember that. And I always have intentional relationships. So when I meet people, I always want to intentionally be there because don't get me wrong, I might establish that person's not for me, and we might never speak to each other again. But for me, it's super important that you're intentional. Now, if I'm hiking up this mountain with this person, I'm not going to get distracted by my phone, by this, by
Right.
that. It's a Sunday as well. I've had people say to me all the time, even last night on the phone, like, what you work on Sunday or you do?" I was like, "No, I work when work dictates, really. Like, I am very fortunate that just last month I didn't work for a whole month.
Mhm.
So I'm in a position that if I don't want to work, I don't work. But when I work, I work.
I joke
And
and
whether
say
that's on a Sunday night or a whatever, I don't mind.
I always joke and say, I don't have to work any day I don't wanna increase my income. So, I've got
Yeah,
income, I've got money that just comes in, right? But any day I don't want to increase that, I don't have to work. But, it's not truly true because a lot of your assets, especially the business assets, you have teams there and they're increasing the income. I have teams that run this
yeah, yeah,
podcast. They're increasing it. They're increasing the following. They're posting stuff for me. There's systems and processes in place. Well, I guess the right phrase would be, I don't have to work any day I don't want to contribute to the increase of my income.
yeah.
Right? The, I'll tell you, the cool thing with these things that you would think you take somebody to your favorite fishing spot and you go the next time and they happen to be there with their kid that you'd be upset because that's your spot. A lot of people get touchy about that. I didn't. I just smiled when I climbed down the side of that little hill on that river, and there this guy was that I helped him catch the biggest fish he had ever caught in his life, and he's sitting there with his 10-year-old son. I set up my gear right beside him, like, just 5, 10 feet away. When I hooked another big one, I walked over and handed the pole to his son. I said, "It's your turn, bud." Right?
Mm.
And because that lights me up more than reeling it in myself, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
reel one in almost every time I go there. I know where to throw, I
Yeah,
know
so
where the channel is.
you're gonna do it. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're too we don't eat the damn things because 'cause they're once they're like, most fish, they're if you eat fish, regularly, there's a certain size that's good, and there's a certain size you wanna put back in the river because 'cause they're good stock, they're good breeders, and quite frankly, a 30, 40 pound catfish, the meat's not that good, right?
Yeah.
If you're gonna eat it. So, it's like, I'm gonna keep this thing, I'm taking food off anybody's table. I could go buy catfish at the damn grocery store if I really wanted some, right? You know? The whole point is that, you know, he didn't wanna sell his business, he wanted to do some he was a business owner, he wanted to invest with me. He did end up loaning us some money for a couple of deals, but it wasn't for him. But, to this day, he'll send me messages and photos occasionally on Facebook of him and his now 17, 18-year-old son. When he comes back, son's in the military now, when he's 19, 20, I guess. When they come back, they go back to that spot. I was like, "I don't live there anymore, I live in a different state now." And like, "Hey, look what they caught a 27-pound blue out of that spot." And, sent me pictures of them holding it together, one hand on like, all from this thing that, he wanted to learn something, I needed some, he wanted to learn real estate investing and was willing to put money into a project I had years ago. Now I would almost consider us lifelong friends from it. And,
Yeah.
I'll
Well,
tell you, when he's
most
ready
of
to
those.
sell that business of his, who do you think he's gonna call? Because he knows I buy businesses now, and he knows I
Yeah.
still would buy a business in Oklahoma. He wouldn't bother him a bit, So,
Mm.
I bet when he's ready to retire, he's my age, so I'm not be when he's ready, I might not be wanting it. But, when he's ready to retire, who's he gonna think of? Let's talk about your private equity company. What type of companies have you guys acquired?
At the start, you look at things as a bit like a kid in a candy shop, and when you realise what you can do. Because the reality is in the US and the UK alone, there's nearly 3 million businesses for sale, sub $5 million. So, and that's our sweet spot. We like, for us to finance and to scale, we know how to package it to big players. 1 to 5 million is a real sweet spot for us. We would do less than 1 million if the profit's there and whatever. So, gosh, real estate companies, not as in asset-driven real estate companies like brokers and estate agents in the UK, software, SaaS, professional services. So things like media companies are always appealing because most of us need media somewhat. We've got a relatively balanced view on it. What we really look at is how do things, have synergy together. We've got this IT services company. Does that work with this software company? And does this company work with that? So it's always that. There's always the rogue ones where you think, that's good numbers, that's a beauty business. We'll turn that round and move it on, type of thing. But in general, we sort of focus more towards professional services, which can be vague because professional services can have various things within it, or SaaS and tech. We really focus on those areas. Now, the only problem with tech is I don't always like their measure ups. Um, but it's that's what you're invested in.
So the in the tech and IT space, I have some experience in that space. When I got out of the military, I worked for the government. I ran some of the bigger IT companies on the planet. When I got burned out, I went and got a master's degree in marketing, and that's kind of how I went from marketing to real estate. But so I've been around tech. I've been around all that type of stuff. I've done technical startups. The one thing that I have to watch out for is we all have our own cognitive biases and stuff. I had a pretty decent company, one of my connections sent to me, and it's all Microsoft based, and I'm not a Microsoft fan. This is a Mac I'm using. Everything I touch is a Mac. I was a Unix guy, Unix and Linux guy when I was in the tech industry. So, I was the director of IT sometimes. So, but there's usually an IT manager. As a senior director, you have managers work for you. Somebody else handled
Yeah,
all the PC and Microsoft based products. I think they're inherently flawed from design. So this guy calls me up and he has a company. He's like, "Yeah, we're an IT service provider company. I want to sell it. We're doing $2.5 million a year in revenue, about $400,000 in EBITDA." And I'm thinking, a little bit small. And all we do is Microsoft Exchange Server and Microsoft something other, back end software. I'm thinking, I don't know the first thing about that, and I already know that I can't stand it. And any company that I buy from, if I buy your company, any company I buy from them that point forward, you're going to be trying to get me and convince me to put the tech. If we're working together, you're going to try to be
you need
convince
to
me to
sense
move
it.
the tech stack to your stack. And I'm not
Mm.
interested in that. If the company already had it, I wouldn't turn away a company that had that tech stack. But I damn sure don't want one of my core companies out there, that I'm trying to grow.
Well,
And
I think that's if you want if you're looking for a balanced portfolio,
mm,
obviously tech and or IT solutions and whatever we want to phrase the company play a core part because any business needs
mm-hmm,
IT support. Any business needs it. Whether you have it as a full-time thing or a one you click into and pay as you go
mm-hmm,
type thing, you all need IT solutions. So that was why it was one of the when we first done them together. Now I bought small businesses prior to me and my business partner working together. He used to run a large American company that bought 5 or 600 million pound businesses. So they work with like the FBI and things like that. So that big company. And so when we done our first together, it was very much like let's focus on the software tech, IT solutions type of company because that's going to be a core. Because
mm-hmm,
like you said about the Microsoft, I actually like Microsoft, but like the I'm not a bias to either way to be fair. But if you have a solutions company that focuses on one space of tech, then naturally anything you do thereon, there's going to be synergy. Now you might not change what that company uses. I've just acquired a company that's on a different CRM platform and everything. Logically, I would transfer it all over. It's the same thing, but it's not really worth it because it works well for them. Now, could we save them money by putting on the company we already own? 100%. But actually, it's work. So what's the point of changing it? So I think that's really it comes back into the strategy when we were talking real estate earlier. I think it comes into that strategy format, like where are we going? Because it is a little bit like a kid in a candy shop. There is so many options. It's a little bit like, well, I remember looking at a beauty salon. I don't know anything about beauty salons. I've scaled professional services, I've sold financial services, I've sold tech. I don't do bloody beauty salons, but the numbers were good. And you learn, don't get me wrong, I can scale most businesses, but
Don't get me wrong, if his numbers were more like, say, 1,000,000 in EBITDA or 2,000,000 in EBITDA and the profit margins were great, and he had a bigger
oh yeah,
if he had a bigger team, so the biggest problem I had was his team was really small and, they're doing 400K in EBITDA, and I'm thinking, at that level, I almost have to either put it can I afford a true operator? 'Cause it's, a good operator in that space is 150 grand, 200 grand, right? That's half, he's paying himself less than that. So some of it's gonna come out of the EBITDA, and I was like, You're not
mm,
big enough to be interesting for me to go into a space I might have to be part-time operator in until I
yes,
grow it, right? If he came to me and said, "I'm doing $2,000,000 in EBITDA, we're running a 40% profit margin," I could care less if he was selling bananas to the zoo for the monkeys. I wanna look at your business, right? I'll figure it out, especially
yeah.
if you have a team of 10 or more doing it.
But that's the thing, it's a team as well. You sound similar to me. I don't want to be running these companies.
Yeah.
I want to just purely be involved as a executive level. We might have a board meeting. We'll
Mhm.
chat about strategies. We'll chat about decision making, and that will be it. And team's quite fundamental. There's a software company we're in talks with at the moment, and no, they don't actually turn over the ideal amount. Like I said, we don't normally look at anything sub 1 million, but they are sub 1 million. But it's an interesting software. But the problem we've got is the team. The team's not big enough,
Mhm.
and suddenly we're thinking, right, okay, now the owner currently pays themselves £150,000 a year. So don't get me wrong, we've got that to work with. But actually, that's not much to play with when you're thinking about getting someone who's going to be a real hard hitter, someone who's going to really come in and help us change this. They're going to want 150 grand in full.
Right.
So then we haven't really got it. So this is what I mean is you get your head and your heart sometimes it pulls you in two different directions when you're doing business transactions, and it's important to come back to what's the goal. I don't want to be involved.
I'm really I love I used to not say this out loud anymore because when you announce this to people, they bring you exactly what you're about to know what I'm about that. I'm really great at solving problems. But what does a
Mm,
problem solver really get? What is everybody if you make yourself really known at solving problems in real estate or a business, what do people bring you? Their problems, right? So I don't like usually announce that very well, but
yeah.
if I like to look at things outside of the box and go, what market are they not serving? They probably should. If there was a low hanging fruit where I looked at his company and said, you know what? Why are you not over here doing the same thing you're doing now for these companies over here? Because that would double or triple your revenue.
Mm.
Then I become more interested. Then I might be willing to step in as the operator
Well,
for a few months because I know there's a low hanging fruit that's a big lever I can pull. Right. I'm always looking
yeah.
for, is there a big lever they're missing? Is there's big leverage opportunity somewhere?
But that's what we focus on
Mm,
is I say I don't want to be involved. We look at these businesses, well, where can we scale them
mhm,
without having to be involved in the day to day. That's exactly what any opportunity we invest in tends to be where is the scalability? Because obviously the numbers already make sense, otherwise we wouldn't be looking at it. But where do we grow this? Because the reality is we don't want to own them for more than 5 years. Our strategy is moving them on unless we really like the core ones will always stay, but the ones around the outside of that we tend to move on. So for us, it's like, well, where do we scale? We've got to scale these businesses. So we don't want to get involved in the day to day running, but we have to be able to see where is the scalability, and that comes from different backgrounds. Me and my business partner, obviously, I used to do this on my own. He was coming out of his work, and he's got skill set and contacts in the US that I don't have. I've got contacts in the US, but not his contacts. So for us, it's a great synergy. Again, it's like, okay, we can open up so many other doors with the combined experience and contacts. So IT solutions company we um, looked at a while ago. Just by having us on board, we quadrupled the turnover. Just by having us two, that was it. Because all we did was tell our friends, our contacts, like this, we own this. Okay, we'll use you. Job done. Finished. So this guy didn't actually sell his business to us in the end. He gave us a controlling stake in the business, over 50%. So gave it to us. He was like, take it. because I can't do what you guys can do. He's an expert in what he does, but he can't do what we do. So he saw an opportunity and it worked.
Yeah.
You know, same with a media company I've been working with recently. You know, they nearly 300 times their income in a couple of months. It's just by knowing who, what, and how. We don't always have the answers, but then we want to know someone that does.
Well, we're running out of time here, and I know you and I could talk forever because we got a lot of similarities,
Yeah,
and
yes.
I'm learning from you, and so what would you say to people out there listening and thinking to either get into real estate and or business acquisitions? What would you give them as a starting advice? Let's get some takeaways real quick.
So I think we've already sort of mentioned this, but I actually think education is key, but not a constant learner. You mentioned that. Not a constant learner. Get some education, and it doesn't mean you have to pay for a mentor. But there is some cost-effective courses out there, and also I'm sure there's someone in your community that we've talked about already about just bending their ear, seeing if they can spend time. That is the biggest key. Whether you want to go real estate or because I can tell you now, if you worked with me on real estate now, I will get you to what took me 10 years in 1 year. But that's the reality. So I'm not saying to work. I don't have any spaces at the moment, but I'm just saying as an example. So for me, that's the biggest thing is educating, and it doesn't mean years of education. It means some education, massive action. Both go aligned with each other.
What's that? I see that sign behind you. It says Grit and Growth Project. What is that?
So that was a private community that I've run for a while. We are debating making it public, to be fair. Uh, but that started actually because of where my mentoring and speaking events and whatnot. I was used to meet people that struggled with the same stuff: mindset, action, community. What we have is we think about our friends and our family as our best community, but actually, what your parents tend to be doing is they're scared for you all the time. So when you say, I want to go and do this, they're like, oh, don't do that. And maybe your friends could be jealous because you're going outside of it. And that sounds harsh to say your friends could be jealous. It's just that's the reality. So I saw lots of people that struggle with community. So what the community was built for was actually initially just about growth and people celebrating your daily wins and supporting and just being able to go in there in tough times. Like, I don't know, I've got this happening. My such and such manager's doing this. I don't know what to do. There's a community of people that are going to say, do this, do that. This is how you can go. It's grown since then. Now we have business specific, property specific, health and fitness specific. But it started out very much as let's just have a group of people that are going to help each other.
I always say that most people really will tell you, and most of them are authentic. They want you to succeed, but very
Mm,
few people are okay with you exceeding, meaning that
yes.
they want you to be successful, but not that much more successful than them for a couple reasons. Not just for it's an uncomfortable thing when somebody sees you outgrow them and out succeed them, and you're doing 3x what they are because they're worried they're going to lose you in their life. They're going to, and very legitimately,
Mm,
sometimes that happens. We have family members who, they're all about being the mentor, being the one in charge and stuff. And the second, you're working on something where they hear that you're going to exceed where they're at, they're all like, "Well, is that all of a sudden the risk comes in, right? Oh, do you really think you should be doing that? That sounds pretty risky." You know? So it
yeah.
happens, and there are you gotta watch out for human psychology. Not everybody that you think's interested in your best interest is interested in your best interest to the fullest of your potential. A lot of people
No,
are in
they're not.
yeah, they're interested in your best interest up until the point where you're at their level, and after that, they become real uncomfortable.
100%, and I think that's the reality of life. And I think it's not like you said. It's not about um, people being jealous necessarily. I think it is in terms of there's a jealous level to it, but I think the reality is it's actually more to do with, like you said, going outside of their comfort zone. We've gone outside of what the norm is, and suddenly once you go outside the norm to a community that normally works in a certain way, it's like, oh, okay, well, good for them, they're lucky, or this or that. But it's not. It's a difficult world. But I think I've worked with a lot of people, and I say the reality is acceptance is the key. That as you start to grow as an individual, there will be people that leave your life. Not because you've fallen out, not because you hate each other, but we grow in different ways, and I think that's the reality. I've got a good friend of mine, for example, that one of my best friends. He's very supportive of me in terms of life and general stuff. But he's not watched one of my videos because obviously I do a lot, I don't do them, but my team do a lot of videos, and he's not watched one for years. I think he said this was only last week. He told me this. It was like last, I think like for 5 years, 6 years. And he said, "Charles, they just cringe me out." And I was like, that doesn't sound very supportive. Now he's like, look, I want you to do well. I love the fact you do well, but for me, it's not me. Like he's quite self-aware.
Hmm.
Normally, people in his position aren't as self-aware.
Yeah.
They by not liking me supporting and helping people, they would moan about it. Whereas he says, look, I love it, but it's just not me. Most people can't see it, so for him, he's just self-aware.
So the takeaway of that is it's okay to outgrow people. I purposely don't stay in contact with certain, individuals growing. And then there's some people that like I grew up with. I know they're never going to do what I'm trying to do. They don't have the ambition to do it. But if I happen to be in town or whatever and I'm going fishing, I'll call them up, say, "Hey, come hang out with me."
Yeah,
All right, and it's I've known them since middle school or longer, and still love them as individuals. They don't want to be industry titans. They don't want to travel the world. They want to go to work, feed their family, and do what they do for enjoyment. And that's okay. That's who they are. I'm not going to take a business advice from them, and I'm quite honestly, whenever we're anywhere, I don't dish out
that's
business
good.
advice to them because they don't want it. Right? That's
Yeah,
not their world.
I agree with that. Like we all have different phases of friends and different groups of friends, and I'm the same. There's I play football or soccer,
Hmm.
as the US calls it, and those group of friends, they're not there. They're not there for that. They're just there for them. Football's life. They work Monday to Friday. They look after their family. They pay the bills. They play football. So we don't really converse about anything to do with business.
Hmm.
You get the odd one that private messages me and help ask me for like, oh, what should I do with this child? But in general, in person, they don't want to be the one that asks that. And to be fair, it's fine by me because actually I enjoy their company in
Mhm,
terms of that's
mhm.
my escape from business, and I think it's okay. I think that's the key takeaway. It is okay. As soon if you are new to buying businesses or real estate, whatever it is your listeners are going to go into here, people will not like it. There will be people in your environment that don't like it. So the fact is, it's okay. The gentleman, my business partner, who I said is a friend, I remember he comes from a quite a closed mindset environment, as best way to put it. And I remember years ago, I think last year he'd done 55 flights in the space of a year, from Japan, US, Sweden, US, all over the shop, UK. And he got a message off this guy who we both know since we were young. And he said, "Oh, look at you, Mr. Big Shot. You think you're all this." He doesn't actually post about anything. He doesn't say anything. But because he's out there working hard and grafting and doing well for himself, this guy just gave him a load of grief. And it was such. I felt quite bad for the guy that sent it, actually. I don't want to
Yeah,
sound harsh, but I felt quite bad for him because I thought, well, that's quite sad that you feel that way because that means you're stuck focusing on yourself
right.
rather than really being looking at about so yeah, that's the key thing is take massive action, get education, whether that's through like educating in terms of paying for courses or finding people. And then actually the biggest thing for me is actually being okay that as you move, people will leave, and it's important to accept that if you want to grow, not everyone wants to grow.
Yeah, it's on them, not you. You've gotta each of us have to choose our own path in our lives, and to be honest, the best way to get there is to surround yourself with people that are already on that path ahead of you, right?
Hmm.
It's the rule of thumb is you're gonna mimic the 5 people you spend the most time with. And just got to watch out for that because you'll people naturally live up, including yourself and me. We live up to expectations, so be around people that expect more out of you, not less. And
Oh yeah.
I still go to family events, I still go to do other stuff. And but I watch how many hours I spend with people who, there's a joke in our family is like there's a phrase in Oklahoma that I don't know that's anywhere else where they refer to it as a rich bitch snob, right? And I drive an old beater of a car, even when I was doing real estate. I don't drive fancy vehicles. I don't buy fancy houses, but the fact that I own a bunch of real estate, they'd always like, "Oh, here's our snooty little rich bitch cousin," and I was like, and
I've heard that.
Yeah, and it's part of that is, it's okay, but, then they turn around and then they get in trouble and they call me and see if I'll bail them out of jail, or they'll get in trouble and say, "Hey, I'm getting evicted. Do you have a house for me?" And I was like, I'm sorry, I don't do that. I have investors, I have commitments. I don't rent or sell houses to family or friends, and I don't bail people out of jail. It's just
Yeah.
I have commitments to investors and commitments to business that, I just don't do that. Now, if my own sister was in trouble, that would be different. But, for most cases, I'll
It's cool.
yeah.
I get it. I've been, locally from where I'm from, I've definitely been told people sometimes say I might be arrogant, but it's like, well, they don't even know me.
Yeah.
You know, they don't know me. They've not spoke to me. So how can you say that? So that's where I think maybe at the start of my career, I used to worry about it far more than I do now.
Mhm.
I used to worry about what I did say in front of people, what they found out about me, because I didn't want them to know my wealth. Because as soon as I knew my wealth, I actually managed to keep my wealth a very good secret for a long time. And then a business magazine done a front page spread and a few pages internally about me, and that ended that secret. But for me, I used to worry about it quite significantly earlier. But it doesn't mean I don't care. But nowadays, I'm like, "Do you know what? It's on you. If you don't like, at the end of the day, I help thousands of people a year. So for me, that's what I'm happy about. So yeah, if you don't like what I do, then that's on you, not me.
Right. So how do people reach out to you? How do people work with you or get to know more about you, find information?
So the best place, I hate to say it, is probably my Instagram these days, but that's the only one where you know you're going to get me directly reply to your message, which is actually quite simple. It's just Charlie_Panayi. But I use LinkedIn sporadically, and they're the best formats. Obviously I've got a website, charliepanayi.com, so you can contact via there. But I think Instagram's the one where you know I'm going to reply. If you message me on Instagram, you will get a reply from me personally.
It's interesting. That's my weakest one. I'm on LinkedIn. Like I probably check my LinkedIn more than I do my own email. But, it's because my email became
Yeah.
overwhelming over the last few years. I have, 2 full-time staff, and one of their job is to make sure I don't miss anything in my email. They go through my email for me and go, "Hey, did you see this?" They'll do my social media too. So if somebody posts something on Instagram or someone I got a message this morning, somebody posted on Instagram, they wouldn't mind sponsoring us. I was like, "All right, show me where that's at because I don't even know where to find that." So
Yeah, no, I wouldn't say I'm super strong on socials. I mean, I've got a big following. I just there's some I will reply to personally, and the problem is if I try and reply to LinkedIn and TikTok and Instagram and emails and Facebook, I can't do that. So my team look after that. Instagram is what I know. You want to talk to me, drop me a message. I will reply personally.
that's the same here as I have probably close to 140, 180,000 followers across the channels, and I miss
Mm,
things all the time. So the team's like, "Hey, this guy sent you a question." They don't answer questions for me because I know people send something they want to talk to us individually. So
yeah.
but I don't want to miss it because there's been times where the reason I have them even digging through everything is there's been times where I'll go look at something and go, "Wait, somebody sent me this. It's August. Somebody sent me something in June asking a question, and I didn't see it until now." So I feel bad, but well, thank you for being here today. Hang out for a few seconds. Is there any final thoughts you want to add before we go?
I don't think so. I mean, I think we went into quite a good conversation about different parts. Maybe not the normal conversation of business, but I think that's the reality. People overthink it. They think, oh gosh, to buy multi-million-pound businesses, you have to be in a suit and a tie and have your fancy watch and sit here and talk proper. The reality is it's relationships. We said it already, but
Yeah.
that's it for me. So I like this conversation. It's very much relationship driven.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here and hang out for a few seconds. We'll call that a show.
Yeah.
I want to announce our new channel partners, the ITX Marketplace. Since 1998, ITX has created $5 billion in value by selling more than 225 IT businesses in 20 countries. ITX works exclusively with IT-enabled businesses generating between 5 million and 30 million who are ready to be sold, and M&A decision makers who are ready to buy. For over 25 years, ITX has developed industry knowledge that helps determine whether a seller is a good fit for their buyers before making the match. ITX Mergers and Acquisition Marketplace we have partnered with has a proprietary database of 50,000 plus global buyers seeking IT service firms, managed service providers, Microsoft service providers, software as a service platforms, and channel partners with Microsoft, Oracle, ServiceNow, and the Salesforce space. If you have an IT-enabled business you're ready to sell, I want you to visit the itexchangenet.com/marketplace. How to exit. That link will be in the show notes. Visit them now.